So now let's talk about creating loft with guide curves. So here I have this simple shape and I've got a couple of cross sections here which I will use for creating this loft, and also these two sketches which I'm going to be using as guide curves. So guide curves will basically define the outline of loft. Let's start with this loft feature and I'll start selecting these cross sections. So first, then the second one, then the third, and finally this fourth one. Now as you can see, it is completely tracing this geometry the way it should, but it is not exactly the way we want. Now we want this bottle to have this kind of outline right here, and if you want loft feature to kind of follow this outline, then you can use guide curves for that. Now the guide curve option is right here, so expand this panel, this guide curve panel, and select this box, and now select the guide curves. Now these guide curves will influence the geometry. So here I'll select this guide curve, and as you can see now it will follow this guide curve right here. Also I'll select the second one, and from this side also it's going to follow the guide curve, and this is the shape of this bottle which we are now going to get. So using this guide curve you can kind of define the outline of loft feature which you are making. Now there are a few options that will help you control the shape created by guide curves precisely, and these options are here. So first let's just talk about the guide curve influence. So right now the shape of this bottle is influenced by the guide curve only up to the next guide, and we have also some other options. Maybe let's just start with global. Now with global option selected, the guide curve influence will be completely all the way around. So these guide curves will influence this shape completely all the way around. So that's the easiest one, and when you select global it's going to affect it everywhere. Then we have an option called next guide, and when you select next guide, one guide curve will have its influence only up to the next guide, and from there it's going to be the second guide which will influence up to the next guide. So that's the next guide option. Now in this case it is not going to kind of make a significant difference here, because if you just look at this option, if I select global, it's hardly making any kind of difference, though it is actually influencing the shape up to the next guide. And then we have options like next edge and next sharp. Now let's just look at this option, next edge. But before we do that, let me just orbit this drawing here, and I just want to highlight this part of the drawing. So here we have these edges, and these are the points which are actually edges. We don't have a sharp edge here, but this is where the sketch is changing. So we have this sketch, and then this one is another sketch, and so is this. So this is the point which is called an edge. Now when you select to next edge, SolidWorks will influence the guide curve only up to the next edge, and this is the kind of shape which you will get. So this is the guide curve, and as you can see the guide curve will influence the shape only up to this next edge here, and then this edge here. And so is the case with this. Now this guide curve is influencing only up to this edge and up to this edge here, and from here it's just the normal loft feature. Now we don't have any kind of edge for these ellipses. As you can see, this ellipse is made with just single object or just simple sketch. Just one sketch is here, so there is no edge. So is the case with this and this, but we do have edges here, and that's how it's just going to influence it. So whenever you select up to next edge, it's going to influence it like this. If however you change it back to next sharp, well, nothing will happen because we don't have any sharp corner. Now these are completely tangent corners or tangent edges, so these are not counted as sharp corners. But if you have sharp corners, the guide curve will then influence only up to that next sharp corner. Now that's what these guide curves are. So simply you can use these influence types to create a different kind of loft shapes. We also have options here for tangency. Right now none is selected, so well, nothing. It's just going to create a normal loft with these guide curves. But now you can also affect the tangency of these guide curves. So here I'll just select sketch 10. As you can see, sketch 10 is selected, and then I'll change its tangency to normal to profile, and now this will happen. So this is the guide curve, and right at the point of this contact, the guide curve will follow in normal direction. So this will be completely normal or at 90 degrees to this sketch, and then gradually it will turn around and follow the profile. So is the case with 9. So if you select for sketch 9 also normal to profile, So here I'll select that, and again in this case, at this point, at the point where this guide curve is touching this surface, it is going to keep it completely normal or at an angle of 90 degrees. So it will start exactly at 90 degrees and then it will gradually turn around as per the cross sections which we have selected. Now, not only that, you can also use an angle for this. So if you have created your own sketches, you can use it as an angle or as a direction vector. So in this case, maybe let's just select sketch 9 and then I'll go to this next option, direction vector. And now we can specify a direction in which the curve will start. So here I'll maybe select this line as the direction, and now just look at this arrow. So the direction of this curve will be along this line, along this selected line right at this point, but again gradually it will just follow the curve. So that's how you can again change it. So you can change the same thing for sketch 10. So here is a sketch 10. Right now it's starting exactly at 90 degrees, but we just want to maybe let's start it at this angle. For that, I'll just again select direction vector and I'll select this one, and now it is starting at this angle right at this point, and then it will gradually follow the curves. So that's how you can change the tangency. So here I'll change it to none for a sketch 10, and also for a sketch 9 I'll change it to none. So we just want a simple one here, and also here in the curve influence I'll select global. We want to apply it all the way around, and with these settings this is what we are going to get. So this is our loft features, this kind of bottle. Now let's understand the same thing using a completely different example. So here we have another set of objects. So let's just go to loft, and again I'll start lofting from this to this. So these are the lofts, and as you can see, we are not getting the expected kind of shape here just because of this. So I'll just move it here, the control points. So I'll just move it here, and now this is what we are going to get, a completely clean loft. All right, now let's go to guide curve and let's select the first guide curve as this one. So as soon as you select the guide curve, it will start following it here. And here, as you can see, this guide curve is now influencing this overall shape. Now here also you can change these properties. For example, in this case, you can change it to next edge. And when you select it, SolidWorks will just follow the guide curve only up to the next edge, which happens to be this one. As again, you can see we have a tangent edge here. This is not a sharp corner. This is just a tangent edge. So it will just follow the guide curve up to this next edge, and from there onwards, it's simple loft. So that's the next edge option. If, however, you select this option to next sharp, it will now influence it up to the next sharp corner, which happens to be this one. So now the guide curve is influencing. Let me just turn it around and you can see it clearly now. So now this guide curve will influence up to this next sharp corner, and you can clearly see now that it is actually ignoring this edge. So it is ignoring the edge and it's just influencing it up to the next sharp edge. Now if you change it to once again next edge, this is what you're gonna get. The influence is up to this edge, and if you select next sharp, the influence is up to the next sharp corner. So that's these options. All right, now we also have other options like to next guide, and when you select that, it will influence it only up to the next selected guide. So maybe let's just select one more guide, and here we are. Now this guide curve will have its influence only up to this guide curve, the second one, and from there onwards it's the influence of this guide. So this guide curve will now decide the shape of this loft feature after that. So that's what this next guide option is. In this case, let's just select all the three here. There we are, and this is the kind of loft which we are going to get. So depending on the kind of option which you are selecting, the loft feature will vary slightly in some cases, and in some cases the changes can be quite significant as well. So depending on the kind of shape which you are planning to make, you can choose any of these options. So with that, I'll just click OK, and here we have the loft feature.